We talk about boomers endlessly. We dissect Gen Z like there's some kind of fascinating new species. And millennials? Well, the internet has been obsessed with them for a decade. But there's this entire generation that just exists in the middle, barely mentioned, almost invisible. I'm talking about Generation X. Born between 1965 and 1980, they are the older coworkers who never complain, the parents who seem oddly detached, and the people who literally built the modern internet but don't feel the need to post about their breakfast. But here's the kicker. Their psychology is probably the most complex and, frankly, the most dark of any living generation. They didn't learn about human behavior from a textbook. They learned it by being left alone in a dark place with no one to guide them. Today, we're going deep into the psychology of human behavior to understand the invisible generation. We're looking at why they are the masters of reading manipulation, why they naturally follow the 48 laws of power without even trying, and why their unique brand of dark motivation makes them the most resilient people on the planet. To understand Gen X, you have to understand the latchkey kid phenomenon. Picture this. It's 1978. You're 8 years old, you come home to an empty house because both your parents are working. No smartphone, no Ring cameras, no way for anyone to check if you're okay. You let yourself in, make your own snack, and just wait. A study published in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry found that by 1984, approximately 7 million children in the US were regularly unsupervised after school.
This wasn't just parenting style, it was a psychological forge. In the world of dark psychology, we often talk about how environments shape our survival instincts. Gen X didn't have a safe space, they had the real world. This created a generation that is fiercely independent, but also deeply cynical. They learned early on that you can't always count on authority figures to be there. If you want to talk about what is dark psychology, it's often born from this kind of early self-reliance. They became experts at observing psychology facts in real time. They saw the world as it was, not as it was promised to be. Because they grew up watching the institutions around them crumble, from Watergate to massive corporate layoffs, Gen X developed a mindset that mirrors Machiavelli. They don't care about the fluff, they care about competence and power dynamics. If you've read any dark psychology books, you know that one of the core tenets is being able to see through manipulation. Gen Xers are like human lie detectors. They grew up in a high contingency environment. That's a fancy psychological term meaning their actions had immediate real-world consequences. If they messed up, there was no delete button, no social media buffer. This is why they often gravitate toward the 48 laws of power. Not because they want to be villains, but because they understand that power is the only true currency in a world that doesn't care about your feelings. When they walk into a room, they aren't looking for friends. They are analyzing the psychology of human behavior of everyone present.
They know who has the power, who wants it, and who is faking it. It's not evil psychology, it's survival. Millennials grew up with the promise that they were special. Gen X grew up with the promise of nuclear winter. They spent their childhoods doing duck and cover drills at school, as if a wooden desk could protect them from an atomic bomb. This created a specific kind of dark motivation. When you think the world might end tomorrow, you don't sweat the small stuff. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism. They expect the rug to be pulled out from under them, so when it happens, they're the only ones left standing. This is where the dark psychology tips come into play. Gen X learned to turn irony into a shield. If you can laugh at the tragedy, it can't hurt you. They aren't cynical exactly. They're just deeply realistic. They've seen the dark psychology facts play out in the economy, in politics, and in their own families. They watched the divorce rates skyrocket in the 70s and 80s, which taught them that even the most stable structures can break. This made them masters of the psychology tricks used in emotional self-protection.
Gen X is the bridge generation. They're the last ones to remember what it was like to be truly alone with their thoughts, to be bored without a screen to distract them. There's a psychological concept called deep encoding. Before Google, if you wanted an answer, you had to go to a library, hunt through card catalogs, and physically find a dark psychology book or a science text. Information had a physical cost. Because of that, Gen X values knowledge differently. When you see them working today, they don't look for praise. They don't need likes to feel valid. They just do the work. This is a form of dark influence that younger generations often mistake for apathy. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't value the manipulation of social validation. Their privacy is their greatest asset. In an age where everyone broadcasts their life, Gen X knows that the less people know about you, the more power you have. That is a fundamental rule of dark psychology. So, what can we learn from the invisible generation? First, that silence is often a sign of strength, not weakness. Second, that being able to navigate a dark place without fear is the ultimate superpower. Gen X might not be the loudest voice in the room, but they're the ones holding the floor together.
If you want to understand human behavior at its most raw, stop looking at the influencers and start looking at the people who grew up unsupervised, survived the Cold War, and built the digital world without needing a thank you note. The next time you find yourself browsing dark psychology books or trying to learn new psychology facts, remember that there's a whole generation out there that lived those facts before they were ever written down. If you're a Gen Xer watching this, let me know in the comments, did I get it right? If you're a millennial or Gen Z, what's the most Gen X thing you've ever seen a parent or boss do? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the mind. Subscribe for more psychology tricks, tips, and deep dives into the human behavior that runs our world. Stay sharp, stay aware, and remember, the most powerful person in the room is often the one you didn't notice.